Good morning. It's Heather Dunlop with Thriving Woman. Thank you so much for being here. Happy day after Christmas. So, what I want to share with you today, and what I'm going to be sharing all week, is about our identity. And today, what I want to start off with is talking about where our identity comes from. So there's a few things that happen when we are in the first early years of our life, like from age 1 to 8 or 0 to 8, I should say. That's when we're very malleable. And what I mean by that is we just absorb and absorb and absorb. We absorb everything that's going on around us. We absorb what's being said around us. And if we hear it enough and we hear it repeatedly again and again and again, it starts to become an automated pathway in our brain. So when we're the first 8 years of our life, we're just really taking on everybody's identity around us. And those we're closest to is who we tend to identify most with, right? Because we spend the most time with them. We care for them the most. So we tend to want to be like them when we're very young. And what happens is we start to create these automated pathways. Now those automated pathways continue to develop. And in women, it's actually until age 24 before we actually start to really just create and form our own very unique opinions. So imagine that the first 24 years of our life, we're taking on what's happening around us. We're creating automated pathways without even knowing it of everything that we hear around us, everything we hear in school, everything we hear at home, what we hear from our friends, what we hear on the news, on the radio. Everything is creating automated pathways. And it's not until age 24 that we really begin to question those and start to say, hey, this isn't working for me. I need to do something different here. So let's talk about how those automated pathways get created. What happens to create our identity is it comes from our beliefs. And our beliefs are created by hearing something and doing it over and over and over when we have a situation. So what happens is there's a situation and we have a thought and we have an emotion. And then we take an action. And when that situation comes up enough and we have that thought, emotion, take action, it becomes automated in our brain after we do it over and over and over. So you've heard habits, it takes 21 days to form a new habit. Actually, it takes longer than that. 21 days is where we start to feel that, okay, we're breaking that old habit and we're starting to make this new one automated, but it's not yet automated. It actually takes 60, 70, up to 80 repetitions of doing that over and over for it to become automated. So if you think about it, that's why if you go to the gym or you start a new diet, which a lot of people are going to be starting new diets, we're coming up on the new year, and people say to you, oh, it's only going to take 21 days to create a new eating habit. And you're like, okay, how come it's the end of January and it's still not a habit? I've been doing it and I've been doing it and I'm going to give up on it now because I was told it's 21 days. Well, it's not 21 days. It's actually going to take you at least through the end of February into mid March before that becomes automated. So that's what happens with our beliefs and our identity. You have a situation, you get a thought, your emotion, and then an action, right? So let's talk about different situations which will cause us to have our identity. One I talk about frequently here because I help women who've experienced sexual assault or domestic violence. So, what I talk about is how did I first form that identity? I'm a survivor. And then how did I break it? And that's what we'll talk about this week. So, how did that identity get formed? When I was seeking help, I went to therapists, I went to group, I read books, I did all kinds of things. And people kept saying to me, you're a survivor. You are a survivor. You are a survivor. You are a survivor. So it started to get in my head that because this is what I experienced sexual assault, molestation from age 8 to 12, and that was stuck in me. It took me a long time before I actually wanted to deal with it. And it was actually, I was in my early 20s. I was like 23, 24. Imagine that. So I was questioning things and I said, I'm done with this. It's time for me to move on. And that's when I started seeking help. And that's when I went to therapists. And that's when I went to group therapy. And that's when I started reading all the books. And everything was saying to me, you're a survivor. Everything I said came up across said, you are a survivor. So that started to get implanted in my brain because each time I went to a therapist, it was a situation. I had thought and an emotion and an action, and I accepted I'm a survivor. I went to group, and what do they repeat over and over? I'm a survivor, I'm a survivor, I'm a survivor. You chant that in some of those groups. I am a survivor, I am a survivor, to identify with the people around you, right? Our identity. And they didn't sit well with me. So even though it didn't sit well, it still got in my head, I'm a survivor. And I was rejecting it, consciously rejecting it, but yet it still got in there. So how's that happen? It happens because we're exposed to it over and over and over and over. I heard that well more than 60 times, 70 times, 80 times, 90 times. I heard it over and over and over. I would pick up a book to read about the topic, to how to heal, and it would say you're a survivor. Identify as a survivor. So my brain, my subconscious, the subconscious that runs 90% of what we do, created that automatic pathway that said, you're a survivor. And I didn't want that consciously. So I had to learn how to change my identity. Because if you're anything like me, survival's not enough. And today I'm able to identify as a thriving woman. Survivor doesn't stick to me. That's a label that was placed upon me. It was a label that was placed upon me that my subconscious mind absorbed and created an automated pathway for, because I heard it so many times. And I didn't know how to reject that at the time, to keep it out, to prevent that from becoming an automated pathway. So that's what we're talking about this week. This is Identity Week. So where do our identity come from? It comes from being exposed to a situation. For me, that was going to group, that was reading those books. It was going to a therapist one-on-one and being around people who were saying to me, you're a survivor. So then I had a thought that said, well, I must be a survivor because I survived all of this and I'm still here, right? Then I had an emotion. Well, what was that emotion? That triggered emotions in me. That triggered negative emotions. That triggered that memory of what happened, of the experiences that I had from age 8 to 12. It triggered all of that. And because those are so fired emotional, such hot emotions, that the subconscious said, I need to pay attention here because your emotions are firing. So this is important. And then I would take an action and I would read a book. Or I would sit in that group and chant, I am a survivor. So here's the thing. We get to change our identity. We don't have to stay as one identity. If you don't want to identify as a survivor, you don't have to. You have permission to change how you identify yourself. I no longer say I'm a survivor. I am a thriving woman. Oh my God, it feels so freaking awesome. It feels amazing. So here's what I ask of you. If you resonate with this and you want to change how you identify to yourself first and then to everybody else around you, schedule a 15-minute call on my calendar. The link is going to be in the first comment below. And let's take this a level deeper. And let's work on your identity and how you choose to identify yourself. Not how anybody else wants you to identify, not what's been placed upon you, not what you've absorbed all those years, and not what I want you to identify as. I want to know how you want to identify yourself, and I want to help you get there. So book a call on my calendar and let's talk about this. Let's take this a level deeper. And then tune in all this week because I'm going to continue to talk about identity all week and how we can take steps to adjust how we identify ourselves. This is Heather Dunlop. Always remember, you have strength within you.